Did you know that Flappy Bird was so addictive its creator pulled it from app stores? This was the #1 game in the Apple and Android app stores, supposedly making $50,000 a day. And then it was taken down. Now, what do you think would happen if I challenged AI to not only recreate this game, but make it better? The results surprised even me, and if you stick around, by the end of this video, you'll be questioning everything you thought you knew about game development. So in February 2014, Dong Win shocked the world. His simple game about a bird flying through pipes was at the top of every App Store chart. Players were destroying their phones in frustration. The media was calling it the new crack cocaine of mobile games. And at its peak, it was generating an estimated $50,000 per day in revenue. Then, out of nowhere, Win pulled it. Gone. Deleted. Phones with Flappy Bird installed were selling on eBay for thousands of dollars. But here's what got me thinking. That game, as addictive as it was, is actually pretty simple. Just a bird, some pipes, and gravity. So, I wondered, what would happen if I gave modern AI 10 minutes to not just recreate it, but improve it? No game engine, no frameworks, just raw HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I'm using Claude Code, an AI coding assistant that can actually write and edit files directly on my computer. Now, I need to be clear about something. I'm not a game developer. I've never built a game in my life. I'm literally going to give AI a couple of simple instructions and see what happens. Will it work? Will it crash and burn? Can AI really build something that took a human developer weeks to create in just minutes? Okay, I've got my development environment ready. Just one file that says hello world. That's it. I'm going to screen record everything in real time. No cuts, no edits during the coding section. You're about to witness either the future of game development or a spectacular failure. Let's find out which one it is. So let's have a look at how to build this game in real time. So you see at the moment, I've got a very minimal setup. It's just a file that says hello world, the classic introduction to computer science and most programming languages. So that's all I've got here, one file. If you look at it in plain text, it just says hello world. So now to build the game, I use Claude Code as a general all-round workhorse. So I'll let Claude Code start. I'll bring the whole console onto the screen and I'll say build a Flappy Bird's clone in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So a couple of specific choices I'm making here. Typically, if you're building a modern web application, you'll use a framework such as React or Vue.js. So the reason I told Claude Code to build it in just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is they are the fundamental building blocks. It will simplify the development process, so you won't need to go through a whole bunch of builds and installs. Essentially, my expectation is I'll just be able to refresh the browser, and I've got every expectation that Claude Code will come up with a working first version of the game, and then we can use that to iterate further. So I'll keep this running as one continuous shot, so as Claude takes a bit of time, I'll just add some more commentary in the background about what I think it's doing and how I think it's going along. So one of the reasons for using Claude Code is it's got this great planning mode. So if I was just to do this in, let's say, the browser in Claude or GPT, for example, it could probably come up with all the files and do a reasonably good job of it. But one of the benefits of these CLI tools, and CLI stands for Command Line Interface, which is what I'm working in at the moment, is they actually can come up with a game plan. And we can go over this in more detail later, but this essentially it's what I see as a prompting technique to help it generate better code with fewer errors. And so if you were providing an initial instruction into ChatGPT, sometimes and apparently the game's ready, so let's test it, and then we'll keep going. And so you can see here, that's a pretty good, that's not a bad first version, which is assisted by the plan. So what I was saying before is by using Claude Code, even though if I give it a basic instruction, it's as if it can do its planning, and it can essentially do a bit of the prompt engineering work to make it a a better version automatically without me having to write these detailed instructions. So now let's say improve the game by adding objects which the bird can potentially collide with. So let's have a look at it. It does this improvement, but to wrap up the point I was making, it's got this plan here. So from what I've seen, for every prompt I give it, it automatically comes up with these plans, comes up with some steps that it needs to do, and by breaking down particular tasks, so you can see here it's got the game logic, the bird physics, the pipe generation, and not being a game developer, these are things that frankly I wouldn't even necessarily know about. So it can start with this basic instruction, come up with a detailed plan, and essentially in one shot come up with a working version that didn't even have any errors. And so now what I've asked it to do is the objects, and the last step I'll get it to do is I'll make it a bit of a shooting game. So I'll give the bird a little gun that can shoot the objects. And so the point is to demonstrate how quickly you can iterate these days with the tools that are available. So I know other people have attempted to do this with earlier versions of the technology, and it took so long. It was a lot of trial and error, whereas now I can't even make a coffee, and the first version's already done. And so at some level of complexity, I find you do need to be a bit more structured with your approach. And so if you're dealing, let's say, with a code base that's multiple millions of lines, in that case I find you do get the best results, especially if you know the code base. You want to point code in Claude in particular directions, otherwise it can get a little bit lost when the code starts becoming huge. But this initial version of Flappy Bird, it's a fairly straightforward project. So if we just jump in to show you what I mean by this, there is a command called WC, which essentially does a word count, a count of how many lines there are. So if I do cat, that's just going to show all the code. And then if I want to get a sense of how complex this is, I'll just feed it into a counter, and we can see it's 701 lines, which is it's a reasonable sized project, but nothing that I'd say Claude can't just keep working with as a whole. Like, you don't have to segment it down and point it to particular parts of the code base. So it's this change is actually a bit more complex. So it's 150 seconds by the looks of it. Let's see how it's gone. So let's see if the objects appear. And there they are. There's a little octopus thing. And so the last change I'll make is give the bird a shooting device triggered by enter key that lets bird shoot the objects, and then also which should increase the score. So this is the last iteration I'll make, and you can, the limit to this thing is really just your imagination. So you can take these ideas and run with them and have a bit of fun with them. So it's the reason I chose this particular exercise is it's once you play with it a bit, it's a learning exercise. You get to use Claude in a real world environment, but it's fun, right? So that's the real, part of the motivation for that, or one of the drivers I think for success is if it's intrinsically motivating, if it's fun, if you enjoy doing it, it's potentially, you'll get to the finish line more quickly than, let's say, you're doing a dry to-do list or something where it's a bit more laborious to walk through from beginning to end. So I think it's a great example for learning the basics of how Claude code works, for understanding what you can do with it. So let's and again, you can see here, reiterating what I said before, every time you do something, even if I provide Claude code with a very basic prompt, it still comes up with a plan. And I found this is what maximizes its success compared to the browser-based tools where you're just chatting in the console. So you could also do this in ChatGPT or Gemini or Sonnet, but when I've taken that approach in the past, you do need to be a lot more precise to get things right. There's more trial and error, whereas as you see here, this is all streamed in one continuous video, and so far there haven't been any errors. It's just all run straight out of the box without needing to do any debugging, without needing to provide any additional instructions. So let's see if this holds true with this last iteration, and if there are any errors, we'll go through and try to fix them, and if it works, we'll wrap up the live portion coding of the video. And so it is writing quite a bit of code here. So normally what I like to do is, with the background in software engineering, I like to review every single line that it does, that it changes, to make sure that I'm happy with it, that it's architected properly. In this particular case, I'm happy to admit that game programming is quite outside my wheelhouse, and so I get, just reading things like enemies and bullets, I get a general sense of what it's doing here, but because I'm not a game developer, that's not something I'll do now. Like, I don't make any claims to being able to review game-related code at any sort of serious level. But I am just looking, at what it does, trying to understand it, seeing it generally makes sense. So far, it's looking okay. So let's see if it works as expected. So I'll do this. I'll press enter now. Okay, it's shooting little somethings. Okay, and it's seems to be shooting at the objects as well, which disappears. So the one thing I didn't see, I'll see if the score goes up. That's actually quite difficult, and I could see myself becoming a little bit addicted. So yeah, I think the score was going up there. So just having my attention split a couple of different ways. But if if I'm no good at this game, I'll wrap up anyway, and I can check that the score increases a bit later. So let's give it 2 more tries, and then that's it. I was just trying to confirm that if I shot this fish or alien-looking thing, that the score goes up. Okay, yeah, the score goes up. So that's there you have it. The entire Flappy Bird's built beginning to end, with a couple of enhancements in just a little over 10 minutes. Okay. Did you just see what happened there? In a little over 10 minutes, we went from Hello World to a fully functional game with flying enemies, shooting guns, particle effects, collision detection for everything. Let's put this in perspective. The original Flappy Bird had one mechanic: tap to fly, avoid pipes. What we just built has multiple different game mechanics. And here's the kicker: I didn't have to write a single line of code. Not one. Think about what traditionally goes into making even a simple game: planning the game logic, setting up the physics engine, creating the graphics, programming collision detection, testing and debugging, adding features one by one. That's weeks of work for a solo developer. We just compress that into the time it takes to make a sandwich. But here's where it gets really crazy. Remember how Flappy Bird was making $50,000 a day? Well, imagine if Dong Win had access to this technology. He could have prototyped 10 different versions in the morning, added multiplayer in an afternoon, created seasonal variations every week. The entire mobile gaming industry could be about to change. And by the way, quick disclaimer, the voice you're hearing, that's 100% me, but this face you're looking at, that's AI generated. I know, it's actually an improvement. This version of me never has bedhead and can work 24/7 without coffee breaks. Honestly, I'm a little jealous. Back to the main video. It's not just games. If AI can build a complex game from scratch in under 10 minutes, what else can it do? Educational labs, business tools, creative projects. We're not talking about AI replacing developers. We're talking about AI turning everyone into a developer. Oh, and here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. Want to know how much this cost me in API credits? 20 cents. 20 cents. The game that was making $50,000 a day, we just built a better version for less than the cost of a piece of chewing gum. Look, it doesn't matter if you're a professional developer, a student, or someone who's never written code in your life. This changes everything. The barrier to creating software just went from a mountain to a speed bump. Want to try this yourself? That's fantastic. I'd love to hear about what you're building in the comments. 10 years ago, Flappy Bird proved that simple ideas can change the world. Today, we prove that anyone can bring their ideas to life. The question isn't, can AI build this anymore? The question is, what are you going to build? Thanks for watching. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go and see if I can beat my high score.